Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are in the world, I welcome you to this journey of the Pluriverse. I have been exploring emergent futures and the coming of a phase shift and a pluriversal world in my last 3 episodes. For a long time, I've been writing about this topic, and this video series, YouTube series, is an attempt to explore this in depth and build a community of people who hold the vision of a pluriversal world. We can hold it together. So, in today's episode, I want to discuss and explore the leadership paradigms that are shifting and must shift for us to step into emergent futures and a pluriversal world. So, let's begin. In the last episode, I spoke about the crisis of leadership and how the hegemonic paradigm across business, politics, institutions, organizations, across the board, across the spectrum, have created leadership paradigms and a school of leadership that glorifies aggression, competition, assertiveness, supremacy, dominance, control. And what we are seeing today, the polycrisis, which is devolving into a meta-crisis, an existential crisis of sense-making and meaning-making, also arise from this leadership paradigm embedded in the hegemony. It is by design and not by chance, but it is by design that we have leaders in every sphere, in political factions, across institutions, across businesses, across corporations, who to us appear to be making almost psychopathic decisions today in the face of planetary collapse, in the face of climate crisis, in the face of immense suffering and polycrisis. But it is by design that certain kinds of people with certain kinds of personalities have risen to the top of the so-called pile. They are today leading institutions, countries, nation states, politics, and they form perhaps the billionaire club as well. So they have literally have the strings that are pulling today's world. The strings that are being pulled in different directions to maintain the status quo. And it is by design that certain kinds of people are doing this. So I want to briefly discuss what has led to this kind of leadership, which we really can't call leadership. They are power brokers. They are working for a set of extremely powerful people at the cost of the entire planet, at the cost of humanity, at the cost of life, at the cost of being life affirming. So there is a set of people who the hegemony needs to maintain itself, to maintain the status quo, to maintain the narrative, to maintain power, profit, privilege over everything else. So what does that entail? So when we talk about rise of hegemonic control across the leadership spectrum, we are seeing dominance, surveillance, repression, extreme control, militarism, rise of police states, and a grasping for propaganda, obfuscation, misinformation, disinformation, anything that will keep the rest of the civil society, the rest of us, the rest of the people, the rest of the planet in darkness, in propagandized haze over the actual machinations and the machinery of hegemony. So they are the string pullers, the power brokers, and the core beneficiaries of the status quo. They form the leadership today. Unfortunately, we cannot call them leaders. And as the world enters a phase shift, we desperately need a shift in leadership paradigms, a shift in leadership narratives, and a shift in what leadership itself means, looks like. who are leaders and who will become leaders will define how we co-create and participate in reimagining our potential pluriversal possible futures. Just as examples of what today's leaders can do, sitting on top of extreme wealth, extreme privilege, almost obscene power, we see them taking out their, or rather we see them repressing, suppressing, oppressing those who they proclaim to work for, to save, to build for. So we see a Google employee being fired for staging a pro-Palestinian protest. So the stage for protest, the place for protest, the place for narratives that are hegemony defying, that disobey the hegemony, that do not fall under the permitted alternatives of the hegemony, are not only shrinking, they are being completely closed down, shuttered. They are being, I would say literally, they are almost being walled in, and they are becoming spaces where civil society would have normally voiced their choices and raised their voices. Now that just normal actions of civil society coming together are being termed as terrorism. That's what Rishi Sunak and his people of his ilk are calling completely peaceful, loving marches, just because it doesn't fit their story, their narrative, their hegemonic worldview. So while I'm taking the current pro-Palestine protest as examples, it's only because it is happening all across the world. It is an issue that has brought people across continents and countries together, and they are taking to the streets, marching, expressing their opinions with their voices and their bodies. These movements have received immense crackdown right across the world, barring a few countries. It's whether it's Rishi Sunak, whether it's Germany, whether it's Harvard, who are rejecting students, who are losing their job offers, or whether it is Google, whether it is Canada, we are seeing shrinking spaces for civil society, for civilians, for us to become citizens. So the hegemony does not want citizens. They want conformists and obedient cogs, obedient resources who will do their bidding. They definitely do not want citizens and communities with voices and choices. And the leadership of the hegemony are putting in all their might, with using all their powers, using all their resources to crack down, to oppress, to suppress, to surveil, to incarcerate, to erase and eradicate semblances of community and keep people atomized, scared, fearful, and keep communities apart. So, why is that happening? Because I believe the hegemony is not only being revealed, it is unraveling, it is collapsing, it is on its last leg. This necro-hegemonic narrative has run its course. It is now on its way out, and the leaders sitting atop know that. They know that. They know that the end of hegemony is the signals are there everywhere. And we are no longer in an era of, just changes. It is not transition from one change to another. It is not transition from agrarian to industrial, from industrial to digital, and digital to AI. Now there is a phase shift. We are in a change of era, a complete phase shift, where the underlying narrative is completely shifting. The narrative that has carried the hegemony forward, has revealed its facade. It is an illusion and a delusion, and it is now fractured, and its fissures are completely, its cracks are now showing. And through those cracks in the hegemonic narrative are emerging multitudes of voices, myriad cosmologies and worldviews from across the planet, from across continents, across dispersed and different reasons, for dispersed and different causes, but they are united in a few things. United in asking for community, for dignity, for resilience, for justice, for equity, for people to be able to exist on this planet in equality and with the abundance that the planet has to offer, but which the hegemony, in its desire to control and appropriate and expropriate and exploit and extract, has left everyone else outside the elite club. Everyone else has been bereft and deprived of the abundance of the planet by design. So we need leadership, and now we are at this crux, change of era. We are at a crossing of threshold, civilizational threshold, and we need leaders who have the capacities to hold space in liminality, to enable the crossing of this threshold from one era to another, and hold space for the emergence of many narratives and diverse capacities and capabilities that will bring to fruition the world's many worlds, possible futures that we will co-create and reimagine collectively. So I think this is my perspective and I really invite you to add yours. I believe the leadership capacities, the three core ones that need to be deliberately inculcated, deliberately developed in leaders, emerging leaders, is the ability to befriend uncertainty, stay with questions, and have unyielding faith in human potentials. So when we talk about befriending uncertainty, we all know how paranoid the hegemony is regarding uncertainty. I mean, the hegemony is literally trying to predict, control, surveil, dominate, and they are fixated on controlling and predicting. They are fixated on knowing and being able to do everything by rote. Today, AI, with its immense powers, and we don't even know what those powers might be, is being put in service of controlling. Algorithms are put in service of serving this controlling narrative. The hegemony is extremely scared of not knowing, of the uncertain, of the ambiguous, of the gray areas. They want binaries, dualisms, us versus them, friend versus foe, evil versus good. But life is not like that. Life is a spectrum. And we hold evil and goodness all within ourselves. So, befriending uncertainty is a core leadership capacity that needs to be developed deliberately, because the hegemony has so focused on predicting, controlling, strategizing, competing, and anything that is unknowable is either shunted out, or there is this desperation to make it knowable, to keep it within the paradigms of the known. Next is staying with questions. This is closely linked with uncertainty. The inability for the hegemony to hold space for questions, for uncomfortableness, for the sense and feeling of not knowing, of being uncertain, of just not having an answer, but staying with the question, delving deep into the question, staying till the answers emerge from our collective consciousness, from the fields of the future. The hegemony is incapable of doing that. With all their predicting and controlling mechanisms, with all the AI in the world, they are constantly, it is trying to make everything known, make the unknown, bring it within the paradigms and parameters of the known. Anything outside of the known, the mysterious, the magical, the imaginary, the intuitive, scares the hegemony, because there lies the seeds and potentials and possibilities for futures as yet unimagined or as yet not manifested. But it is there. It is waiting for us to manifest, for us to co-create, for us to reimagine and collectively bring to fruition. So the inability of the hegemony to stay with questions and this constant drive for answers, for solutions, has led to short-termism, an inability to sense make, and a complete inability to sense the entire system. It's all piecemeal. It's all reductive. Put a band-aid here, let's see what happens. It triggers something else somewhere, so let's put a band-aid there. It's all, so the ripple effects simply is beyond hegemony's capacity to understand or even encapsulate in the narrative. And the final one, the three core ones, there are many more, but I wanted to focus on these three: befriending uncertainty, staying with the questions, and unyielding faith in human potential. Because of hegemony's suspicion of our humanity, humaneness, and our connectedness, our collective humanity rising together, because of its suspicion and fear, they want us atomized and fearful and scared. This constant need for control has led to people, individuals working in the hegemony, to lose touch with their own humanity, to lose touch with their own potential and their own inner wisdom, their own inner creativity, because that is not welcomed, that is not called for, that is not, in fact, if anything, that is oppressed, and that is seen as subversion, that is seen as being subversive of the hegemonic powers and might cost you your job. So three core capacities, leadership capabilities, need to be very deliberately developed as we stay in this liminal space between worlds, as one is collapsing and the other is struggling to be born through our collective narratives. Befriending uncertainty, staying with the questions, and having unyielding faith in human potentials. And in this context, I want to bring up a framework I very frequently use, and I find it extremely helpful. I do believe not all models are useful, but some are really, really useful. And this is Dave Snowden's Cynefin framework. If you are familiar with it, and I'll be sharing the image, if you are familiar with it, you know that it has 4 quadrants. And in the 4 quadrants, you have the simple, the complicated, the complex, and the chaotic. The simple and the complicated quadrants are where today's hegemonic leaders operate from, where the challenges are knowable. You can have best practices and good practices, where you can see, categorize, and respond, and you can analyze and respond. And that is what the hegemonic leadership today is trained to do: analyze, predict, strategize, respond. Clear answers, clear solutions, innovations in service of the hegemony. Great. But the world is no longer simple or complicated, if it ever was. Today, as rapidly we enter the space of complex and chaotic, we have entered this space a long time ago. but the leadership capacities have not been able to evolve for complex, chaotic spaces. We are still trying to control complexity, when what we need are emergent and novel practices. We need divergent worldviews and divergent cognitive abilities to come together. When I say divergent, I don't only mean divergent within the hegemonic paradigm or a single cosmology. I mean divergent across worldviews, across cosmologies, across varied epistemologies and many ontologies. Only when such myriad diversities of voices, narratives, and being, ways of being, seeing, sensing, and relating come together, converge, diverge, and what emerges from that divergence and convergence hold the emergent and the novel practices that our pluriversal futures, possible futures require. Let's not forget we are in a phase shift. Let's not try to deny that, because we are, whether we like it or not, whether we accept it or not, whether we prepare ourselves for it or not, the phase shift will be imposed on us. Either we will be dragged into it kicking and screaming, or we will walk into it with grace, with dignity, with a willingness to learn, unlearn, relearn, and completely be ready to unravel even ourselves, the known self, and become the emergent, befriend our own emerging selves through this phase shift, through this liminality, by becoming the kinds of leadership this emerging world needs. So, I'm coming to the end of this episode almost. I want to reiterate a few points. The future is not a linear trajectory from the past through the present going into the future. It is no longer a linear trajectory, even if it ever was. The attempt to keep it linear has meant obfuscation, propaganda, and disinformation has become hegemonic tools to eradicate and erase every question, inspiration, voice, and acts of passion and acts of creativity that might distract and disobey this linearity. But now, we are in such a distinct point of discontinuity that it is impossible to ignore. It is impossible to erase. So the possible futures are taking shape in myriad ways. It is not linear. It is a web of narratives. It is interlinked. It's a spiral. It's a web. It is connected. It is interconnected. It is interrelated. It is an emerging shape whose shape we don't know, which doesn't have one shape, which is myriad contextual shape-shifting. This is exciting times. It is exciting time to be alive. It is heartbreaking. What is happening in Gaza is heartbreaking. But because of places like Gaza, Congo, and Sudan, we hold the collective responsibility to become the people, the humanity, the citizens, the leaders, the emerging futures require. The hegemony absolutely does not want our solidarity, our community and connectedness, our care and compassion for each other, our collective humanity, and our innate wisdom and passion and creativity, because the force of our collective creative actions have the power to shift paradigms. We know that, and the hegemony knows that. So let's do it together. Let's build and become the leaders, the people, the citizens who eschew dominance, who nurture varied narratives, who inspire creative acts from the depth of our source and wisdom, who can hold space for liminality, and who can stay the course amidst immense grief with compassion and with an unyielding faith in our collective citizenship and in our collective ability to act together. So we need to facilitate communities, build stronger connections, connect with people radically different from us, and hold space for each other through it all. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me on this journey of reimagining our pluriversal futures. And thank you for knowing that the hegemony is unraveling and must go. Thank you so much.